What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for your Overwatch. Season 11 continues to be giving me good luck. In my last play session, I have ranked up one game away from my career high, pretty safely now into GM, which I haven't maintained for about a year now. Success coming from a few different places. I'm finding better and better players to queue up with, which is definitely helpful, of course. The current meta is very fun, but I've also taken a much more proactive look at trying to improve my own gameplay, whereas in the past, I've focused more on teaching others. I'm trying to now review all of my own footage as well. But also, remember, I actually do have accounts at 3 different ranks entirely now. One that's in lower GM, another at upper Masters, close to GM, and then another one in Diamond, which has touched Masters a couple times as well. I play with different friend groups on different accounts, as well as learn new heroes on my lower 2 accounts. And with that experience, I see quite a wide array of the mentality and approaches that players take to ranked. And it's quite interesting the way the atmosphere changes as you go up and down the skill tiers. In today's video, I want to break down some of the philosophy approaches that I think you could pick up on based on what we've learned from playing with higher ranked players and how to really purge yourself of the bad habits that are bringing your games down. A lot of times players feel like they're in a really good spot, but they're stagnating and can't seem to get out of a rut. Well, this video hopefully will help you out. First and foremost, I want to say there's 2 types of players that generally succeed in the Overwatch matchmaking system. Either A, they're mechanically good, so the heroes they play, they will just outplay their opposition until they get to whatever rank that their peak mechanics can carry at. For example, like pro players are so mechanically good, they literally spin circles around their enemy and can just frag everything on screen, guaranteeing that they'll get into lower GM at worst. But also, the second type of player, and I think this is more approachable to the rest of us who aren't mechanically gifted or are aging or whatever. For myself, I'd probably say all of the above at this point. But they succeed through game sense, flexibility, and calling. Because if you aren't actually good enough to literally kill everything on the screen all the time, you're going to have to think about the game in a much more deeper way in order to command it and actually get over whatever plateau you're at. So the first step to that, I would say, is something that is very difficult to do. It takes a lot of maturity. Even the best of us can't really do this perfectly. But number 1 is taking personal responsibility for everything. Far too often do we get into games, specifically like the one I'm showing on screen right now, where I feel mechanically like my Pharah is performing well, and if I tunnel vision only on what I'm doing, a very common phrase can creep up that says, I did X, why did we lose that? Like, I killed the whatever, I did so much, how could we still lose after I'm doing so well? The quicker you drop that mentality, the quicker you can learn to get a much more deeper understanding of what's going on in the game. While you're doing all the things that you're succeeding at, you have to know what the win conditions of the game is. Because obviously, if you did a lot and your team still lost, whatever you did didn't satisfy the win condition. And you can't have the attitude that, well, my teammates just need to step up. That's actually toxic, not in the social skills sense, but it's that too, but to your own improvement as a player. When you're playing with teammates, how you enable them and bring out the best in them is also part of being a good player. There can be a lot of reasons for you to succeed, but the team to fail. You can't tunnel vision on just what you're doing. You have to figure out how the overall team fight is going. What plays are the enemy making and what mistakes is your team making? And you have to either try to attack better targets, take better approaches, swap your hero, or figure out how to prop up what's failing on your team's side. So for example, what I saw in this game was that despite me playing what I thought was quite well on Pharah, my team was trying to get too greedy to capture the objective too fast and allowed themselves to be killed and the fights to get thinned out and the defense just kept respawning and respawning. Also, because our Ana kept dying, our main tank didn't have a support line, so he kept dying. So he ends up switching to Reaper, which oddly enough, not having a main tank was actually a better call. Now, I'm unsure whether or not the Rhine player knew in this situation why everything was failing. It was because we couldn't actually protect our Ana. But in any case, playing something that didn't require the teamwork to work out actually ended up pushing us through this entire map because we just had more damage, people playing in a more self-sustaining playstyle, not reliant on one another. And it's sort of a sad tragedy of Overwatch Ranked less teamwork sometimes can be better. Which is our second point. In ranked, you don't want to fill roles that you can't actually fill. And from what I've seen, I think this happens most severely when people try to fill in on main tank or healer. Especially a lot of times you see DPS players that try to just swap onto Ana, like it's a similar skill set, should be easy, but they approach the playstyle in a way that doesn't keep themselves alive. Maybe they get a bit too much into the action, or they expect everyone else to just protect them without outplaying the backline aggression like a more veteran support player might learn how to do. They sort of get nothing out of that pick, despite them assuming that the team needs it. And similar things goes for main tank. It's really bad if you try to fill on a main tank and you don't know how to play it, and then the team is attempting to play around your main tank play, but then you go on to engage poorly, and the team tries to support your poor engagement, and it's just a losing battle. You're never really putting yourself in a position to win, you're more so plugging holes in a sinking ship. Now, there's a whole separate argument to this, where, of course, a lot of us wish that there was a role queue so that we could all specify what roles we need. That way, you don't have to worry about filling, because I feel you guys, I personally end up filling quite a lot, and a big percentage of my ranked games, but that's also because I feel like I have a lot of experience playing the game a ton on a bunch of different roles. Most players really only have the time to grind out and learn about 2 to 3 heroes, so you're not really setting yourself up for success if you're filling on things you can't really play. But that means, of course, Frito, you're saying that we're going to have bad team comps. Yeah, you actually are. And sometimes that might actually be better. Of course, there is the route where you put in the hard work and learn multiple roles so you can play critical core pieces of the game that stabilizes your team rather than allowing it to fall apart at its seams. But if you can't do that, you need to be willing to play off meta. This is sort of a dual point as well, because I also would say you should be willing to cooperate. Be willing to fill on stuff that you actually can play, but don't lie to yourself and your team, putting up that, yeah, I can play main tank or healer or whatever, when really it's not a hero you excel at. This typically ends up going down one of two routes. There's some people who are pure meta slaves and are only willing to play in team comps that are meta approved. They want the top 6 to 8 heroes in the game, and if anything else is showing, they're going to tilt. But also, I think the opposite is just as equally disruptive, where there's, I don't know, let's call them rebels, who refuse to even play into established synergies and meta picks for certain maps. For example, we've talked it to death, certain maps are very good for Pharah, and if you don't have a diva or your own Pharah or a range hit scan or some combination of these things, you're probably going to be struggling. Also, sometimes the enemy is going to be presenting challenges for you that force you to actually play different heroes than is meta approved, because whatever you think the top of the meta strategy is, the second that the enemy is running off meta heroes and beating you with it, you should start to reconsider immediately what you might have to change either in your approach, your playstyle, or your hero selections in order to overcome that. Realistically, I think the best approach to this is to be willing to be creative with team comps. Don't ever get it stuck in your mind, no matter what the state of the balance patch is, that you can't win with team comps that are outside of your comfort zone. Because it's more important that the majority of your team is inside their comfort zone, even if it technically isn't at the top of the meta. Try to get everyone on their best heroes, even if it puts you on low healing, 1 tank, 3 tanks, 3 DPS, 1 healer. We've seen all sorts of types of comps work, even at the highest level of play. So don't fool yourself in thinking that matchmaking has a smaller selection. It actually has a bigger one. And part of being a good player in ranked is realizing how your role is going to change based on the assets that your team has. For example, if Reinhardt in a multi-tank comp needs to play more aggressive and make use of Moira heals and Lucio speed boost, whereas Winston in a solo tank needs to be incredibly precise on where he's trying to get to and the space he's attempting to make. He has no help, but single tank triple DPS has way more firepower. Similar dynamics apply if you're, say, the solo healer of the team. Adapting to the comp that you actually can run with the teammates you have is an important skill set to ranking up highly in Overwatch. I see it way too much, and it happens, honestly, way more at my lower ranked accounts, where people have this attitude, a lot of the other things that I've said already, but especially if they see a hero they don't like, they start playing worse, if not outwardly throw themselves, and that's just never a way to rank up. We don't play in a perfect system. If you want to have a perfect team comp, use LFG. Find friends. It's a great way to play the game. But if you're playing in the more chaotic mixed queue matchmaker, you're going to have to deal with a bit of craziness. Everything can work in matchmaking is a statement that a lot of people say, and it's definitely true. Just try to make plays with what you have and achieve goals. And that's an important thing going into my last point, which is about voice comms. Use comms to make plays. It's really bad that too often I see people press their mic button or don't use their mic at all and just use text chat to either berate their teammates or complain, getting on voice and just talking about the previous play that just happened or even multiple minutes ago. Don't get yourself caught up in doing this. And I know this is something that I struggle with because I'm a very argumentative person, but at least what I always try to do is give advice for the next fight. It doesn't actually matter who's right or wrong. It matters that the team understands how they're going to approach what's going to happen next. I was playing in a game where an off-tank main was filling on healer, and the other players in the game were berating his play constantly. You're doing this wrong. Why didn't you do this? Which, of course, if he followed my other rule, don't fill roles you can't fill, perhaps that would have been avoided. But in any case, don't use comms to tilt your teammates. You want to be proactive in improving your team through your comms and your game knowledge, rather than retroactive by pulling down morale over mistakes that, let's face it, we all make. Why didn't you do this? You should have done that. Oftentimes, the players already know that themselves, and you'll find that especially really high-ranked players are very good at this, especially ones that typically use game sense and comms in order to succeed. They're very quick to say, okay, next fight, they're going to have Dragon Blade, we'll shut it down with this ultimate, I'll look to bait out Trance this way. That's how you actually succeed at Overwatch, because the game's too fast. You don't really have time to dwell on any mistake that's been made. And I find it quite interesting, actually, that at certain pockets of SR range, from what I've played, this tendency especially, but a lot of these that I've mentioned today, are more intensified. For me, oddly enough, mid-masters is kind of my ELO hell, because on my diamond account, the games are mechanically easier, so if I play my best heroes, I will just rank up, because I'll be able to outplay the opposition. But as I go through the masters ranks, it's kind of interesting that there's so many smurfs there that you see a lot of this negativity and inability to work together. Whereas as I get up to 4100 in the lower GM range, yeah, there's a bit of negativity, but there also is way more proactive calling within the team. You still have these problems, it's never completely fixed, but a higher percentage of players kind of fit down this approach and philosophy that I attempted to teach you here today. I hope that this video was a force for good in the Overwatch community, and we all can try to level up together. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, please subscribe because we upload each and every day. So you're going to want to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link in the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.